Okay, so have you ever felt that when a new competitor just kind of pops up out of nowhere, or like a
Hmm.
project you're leading just suddenly feels like as hanging by a thread,
Yeah.
It's like the business world is like its own battlefield.
Right.
Kind
Yeah,
of
it
that.
is a great analogy.
Yeah.
And it's one that Dr. Kenneth Allard, he's a retired military officer turned business consultant, explores in his book, Business is War.
And get this, this book was published way back in 2003, but we're going to see how relevant his insights still are today.
Right. So Allard, he argues that the skills that you need, like in the military, making high-stakes decisions, leading when everything feels chaotic, they're surprisingly applicable to what business leaders deal with every single day.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating is Allard, he goes beyond just saying business is like war. He gets very specific about the parallels between an actual battlefield and the modern business landscape.
Okay, so like what kind of parallels? Give me an example. We'll take competitors, for instance. In war, you're not always 100% sure who you're up against,
Right.
right? You don't know their next move. And it's the same in business. Competitors are constantly emerging, vying for the same piece of the pie.
It's true. I never thought of it that way,
Yeah,
but it makes total sense. And then on top of that, we've got globalization to contend with.
exactly. That adds a whole other layer of complexity. I mean, the global marketplace is a huge opportunity, but it also means that you're dealing with this vast, constantly shifting landscape, much like a battlefield that stretches across continents.
It's like you're trying to strategize when you don't even have the full lay of the land.
Right, and then there's the information overload. Think about the amount of data that you're hit with every single day. Market trends, performance reports, competitor analysis. It's overwhelming, and to make the best decisions, you have to be able to cut through the noise, act quickly, just like a military commander would in the heat of battle.
It's interesting you say that. Allard tells this great story about a paratrooper, and his reserve parachute malfunctions during a training exercise. And as he's plummeting towards the ground, he sees a cook drifting by in the opposite direction. And the paratrooper shouts, "Hey, buddy, know anything about opening a reserve chute?" And the cook yells back, "Nope. Know anything about lighting a field stove?"
It's a funny anecdote, but it illustrates a really crucial point. Having the right information at the right time, that's crucial, but it's meaningless if you don't know how to interpret it, if you don't know how to act on it.
Yeah, it's not just about having the information, it's about knowing what to do with it. That's so key. And it makes me wonder, does traditional business education really prepare leaders for this kind of fast-paced, this high-stakes environment?
That's another key point that Allard raises. He argues that, while business schools do teach valuable management skills,
Mhm.
there's a gap when it comes to navigating ambiguity and leading through chaos.
Yeah, you've probably heard that great managers don't always make great leaders. And it sounds like Allard's experience kind of confirms that. So if business schools aren't fully equipping leaders for this new reality, where can they turn?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. Allard believes that the answer lies in some timeless principles from, you guessed it, the military. And he saw this firsthand when he began consulting after 9/11. He noticed that many business leaders, shaken by the attacks and the ensuing uncertainty, had this profound realization.
They realize that maybe their traditional business models and their leadership styles weren't enough to weather a true crisis.
Exactly. It was a wake-up call. And it made them acutely aware of their own lack of preparedness for the unexpected.
So it sounds like we're talking about a pretty significant leadership gap. And what I'm hearing you say is Allard believes that the military might have some answers for how to close that gap. But how do we actually take those military principles and apply them in a business context?
Right? It's not about like turning CEOs into generals overnight or anything.
Yeah.
But there are definitely some timeless tools we can borrow from the military playbook.
Okay, I like that. Borrowing from the military playbook.
Yeah.
So what's the first tool we should be reaching for?
Well, Allard, he's a huge proponent of establishing a strong strategic vision. And he doesn't just mean like setting these vague goals. He's talking about developing this crystal clear understanding of your organization's purpose, your commander's intent, so to speak.
Commander's intent. Break that down for me.
Yeah, so in the military, a commander's intent is a clear and concise articulation of the desired end state, of a mission. It gives everyone involved this shared understanding of the ultimate goal, even if the plan needs to change on the fly.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that would be useful. So you're saying instead of just saying we want to increase sales, a company would define exactly what success looks like and why it matters.
Exactly. And by communicating that vision clearly throughout the organization, you empower your teams to make decisions, even small ones, that are aligned with the bigger picture.
That makes a ton of sense. What's another tool in this military playbook?
Teamwork and interoperability are huge.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that a lot of businesses really struggle with.
Oh, totally. We've all worked in companies
They're really
with departments that feel like their own little islands.
exactly. It's like um, Allard talks about this. What happened to the first Gulf War? Communication breakdowns and a lack of coordination between different branches of the military
Yeah.
actually hampered their effectiveness.
Yeah, you would think in the military, of all places, that they would have the whole teamwork thing figured out.
You would think, but it highlights just how important it is to break down those silos and get everyone working together seamlessly. In a business, that means sales, marketing, product development. Everyone's on the same team, rowing in the same direction.
Okay, so we've got strategic vision, we've got teamwork. What else?
The third tool, and this is a big one, is what Allard calls values-driven leadership. And he's very clear. This goes way beyond charisma or just being like a nice person.
Right. It's about more than just being inspiring
Yeah.
or a great motivational speaker. It has to run deeper than that.
Absolutely. Allard argues that true leaders, they make the tough choices, they navigate those ethical gray areas, and they set a strong moral compass for the entire organization. He tells this incredible story about Captain Lincoln Leibner, who was near the Pentagon on 9/11.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've heard about this. Didn't he, run towards the burning building?
He did. His instinct, when he saw that plane hit the building, wasn't to run away. It was to run toward the danger, to help those in need.
That's incredible, and it sounds a lot like what we're talking about, putting the needs of others, the needs of the mission, above your own safety. That takes a different kind of courage.
It really does. And that kind of courage, that selflessness, those are the hallmarks of a truly values-driven leader, someone who inspires, not just through words, but through action.
So we've got these three powerful tools, from the military, strategic vision, teamwork, and interoperability, and values-driven leadership. But knowing the tools exist and actually using them effectively are two totally different things, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Allard's very clear on that point. It's easy to talk about these principles, but putting them into practice day in and day out, that takes a real commitment. It takes a willingness to challenge the way things have always been done.
So where do we even begin? How do we take these big ideas, like commander's intent and values-driven leadership, and turn them into action?
But it starts with defining your mission. Allard says you have to be crystal clear about your organization's core purpose. It's like a military unit with a specific objective. What are you fighting for? What values are non-negotiable? And once you have that locked in, then you can start developing your strategy.
Okay, and that's where things get really interesting, right? Because it's not just about, having a mission. It's about figuring out how you're going to achieve it.
Exactly. And this is where Allard draws another parallel to the military. He talks about the importance of intelligence gathering and analysis, really understanding the competitive landscape that you're operating in. Who are your allies in this fight? What are your weaknesses? And how can you mitigate them?
It reminds me of that old saying, know your enemy and know yourself, and in 100 battles you will never be defeated.
Exactly. And Allard gives us a great example of this in action. He talks about Walmart's data-driven approach to business. They're constantly gathering information, analyzing their competitors, and using that data to make strategic decisions. It's like having a military-grade intelligence operation for your business.
So it's not just about gut feelings or following the latest trends. It's about being strategic and using every piece of information at your disposal.
Precisely. And then finally, Allard stresses the importance of cultivating a culture of continuous learning and improvement.
So always be looking for ways to get better, even when things are going well.
Exactly. In the military, they do this through what they call after-action reviews.
Yeah.
Basically, after every mission, they get together.
Yeah.
And they analyze what went well, what could have been done better, how they can improve next time.
I love that. It's so easy to just move on to the next thing without taking the time to reflect and learn from your experiences.
But that's how you stagnate. Allard argues that embracing this kind of continuous learning is what allows organizations to adapt, evolve, and stay ahead of the curve, especially in today's rapidly changing world.
So to wrap it all up, it sounds like Allard's giving us a new way of looking at leadership, a framework for navigating the chaos of the business world by borrowing from the military playbook.
He definitely is. And he leaves us with this thought-provoking question. In a world where the lines between business and war are constantly blurring, what kind of leader will you choose to be?
Will you be caught off guard, or will you be prepared to lead your team through uncertainty and come out stronger on the other side? It's definitely something I'll be reflecting on. And I hope our listeners will be too. This has been a really incredible deep dive into business as war. And I have to say, Allard's insights are as relevant today as they were over 2 decades ago.